November 3rd, 1944. 0515 hours. Hürtgen Forest, Germany. The frost clung to Corporal James Robert Mitchell's eyelashes as he peered through the pre-dawn darkness. In his hands rested a weapon that had become the subject of merciless ridicule among his fellow soldiers. A Winchester Model 70 rifle, chambered in .30-06 Springfield, purchased from the Sears Roebuck and Company catalog for $42.95 in 1939. Not an M1903 Springfield Standard issue, not an M1 Garand with its distinctive ping, a civilian hunting rifle that his father had ordered from a mail-order catalog to shoot deer in the mountains of western North Carolina. Around him, soldiers from the 28th Infantry Division huddled in foxholes dug into the frozen German earth. Most carried the standard issue M1 Garand rifle. Some carried the heavier Browning automatic rifle that could lay down suppressing fire at 600 rounds per minute. And then there was Mitchell clutching his deer rifle like a country boy who had wandered into the wrong war. "Hey, Mitchell!" Sergeant Thomas Harrigan had jeered just the night before. "You planning to bag a 12-point buck or kill some krauts? Maybe you should have brought your fishing pole, too." The laughter had rippled through the squad. Even Lieutenant Robert Coleman had raised an eyebrow at the non-standard weapon. But what none of them knew was that before the war, Mitchell had been one of the finest marksmen in Appalachia, a man who could drop a running whitetail at 300 yards, a hunter who had won every turkey shoot in Haywood County for 5 consecutive years. The German officers gathering in the clearing 600 yards distant had no idea they were being watched. Through the pre-dawn gloom, Mitchell could see them clearly now. 7 men in the distinctive long coats of Wehrmacht officers, steam rising from their coffee cups, pointing at maps spread across the hood of a Kübelwagen field car. This was the target Mitchell had been seeking for 3 days, ever since he had volunteered for a mission that every other soldier in the division had considered suicide. Forward reconnaissance and elimination of high-value targets in the Hürtgen Forest, that nightmarish maze of dense woods and fortified German positions that had already consumed thousands of American lives. The transformation from mockery to mission had begun 72 hours earlier. November 1st, 1944. Lieutenant Colonel James Rudder, commanding the 2nd Battalion, 109th Infantry Regiment, had assembled his company commanders for a desperate briefing. "Gentlemen," Rudder's voice had been grim, "we are being bled white in these woods. The Germans have observation posts on every ridgeline. Their officers coordinate defenses from positions we cannot reach with standard infantry tactics. We need hunters who can move silently through these forests and eliminate their leadership." When Mitchell had stepped forward, the reaction had been immediate and brutal. The guy with the Sears rifle wants to be a sniper. Sergeant Harrigan had actually laughed out loud. "Mitchell, you are about the bravest or stupidest man I have ever met." Probably both. Lieutenant Coleman had been more measured but equally skeptical. "Corporal Mitchell, this mission requires precision shooting. It ranges up to 800 yards. Your civilian hunting rifle was built to shoot deer, not trained German soldiers who shoot back." Mitchell had simply nodded, keeping his eyes down, his voice quiet. "Permission to demonstrate, sir." The impromptu shooting demonstration that followed would become legendary in the battalion. Coleman had set up targets at 300, 400, and 500 yards, silhouettes roughly the size of a man's torso. Mitchell had loaded 5 rounds into the Winchester's internal magazine, the rifle that everyone mocked. He fired 5 times, 5 shots, 5 hits, all within the kill zone. At 500 yards, the laughter had died. Lieutenant Coleman had walked the distance to the targets himself, examining the grouping. All 5 rounds had struck within an 8-inch circle. Any one of them would have been immediately fatal. "How?" Coleman had asked simply. "Sir, I have been shooting this rifle since I was 12 years old. I know exactly where every bullet will go. I know how it performs in heat and cold, in wind and rain. I know this rifle better than I know my own heartbeat." What Mitchell did not say was the deeper truth. The Winchester Model 70 that everyone dismissed was actually one of the finest bolt-action rifles ever manufactured. Its Mauser-type action was stronger and more reliable than the military-issue Springfield. Its 24-inch barrel was 2 inches longer, providing greater velocity and accuracy. Its trigger broke clean at exactly 3 pounds. Most importantly, it was a rifle Mitchell understood intimately. While other soldiers had trained for months to become barely competent with their issue weapons, Mitchell had spent 15 years mastering this single firearm. The U.S. Army had spent millions developing sniper programs. They had overlooked the simple truth that Mitchell embodied. The best sniper rifle was the rifle the shooter knew best. By the afternoon of November 1st, Mitchell had received his orders. He would operate as a solo reconnaissance and elimination specialist. His mission was to move through the German rear areas and eliminate high-value targets, officers, forward observers, communication specialists. He was given 3 days, 200 rounds of ammunition, a compass and map, 2 days of K rations, 4 canteens of water, a combat knife. What he was not given was a radio, flares, or any means of calling for help. He would be completely alone in enemy territory. The night of November 1st, Mitchell crossed into German-held territory. He moved the way his father had taught him to move through the mountains when hunting, slowly, silently, pausing frequently to listen and observe, becoming part of the forest rather than an intruder within it. By dawn on November 2nd, he had penetrated 3 miles behind German lines. He found a position overlooking a crossroads where German supply vehicles moved between positions, and he began to hunt. His first target appeared at 0730 hours. A German officer emerged from a command bunker and walked toward a staff car. The range was approximately 450 yards. The morning air was cold and still. Perfect conditions. Mitchell estimated the bullet drop, adjusted for the slight crosswind, controlled his breathing, squeezed the trigger with steady pressure until the Winchester surprised him with its discharge. Through the scope, Mitchell watched the officer collapse. The man had been dead before the sound of the shot reached the crossroads. By the time German soldiers rushed to their fallen officer, Mitchell had already displaced 200 yards to a secondary position. The psychological impact of that first shot rippled through the German positions immediately. Officers who had been moving freely between bunkers suddenly became cautious. The easy confidence of soldiers in their own rear areas evaporated. Mitchell's second kill came at 1400 hours. A German forward observer positioned in a church steeple directing artillery fire on American positions. The range was nearly 600 yards, an almost impossible shot even for a trained military sniper. He waited, patient as he had been waiting for deer in the mountains. Finally, the observer leaned out to get a better view. Mitchell fired. The observer disappeared from the steeple. German artillery fire that had been pounding American positions with deadly accuracy suddenly ceased. By nightfall on November 2nd, Mitchell had killed 4 German officers and specialists. Each shot had been over 400 yards. Each had been instantly fatal. Each had sent waves of confusion through German defensive positions. And each had been fired from the rifle that everyone had mocked, the $42 Sears catalog deer gun that had no business being on a battlefield. Mitchell had grown up during the Depression in a hollow so remote that the nearest town was a 3-hour walk. His family had been poor even by Appalachian standards, but his father had saved enough money to order that Winchester from Sears, $42.95, nearly a month's wages for a coal miner in 1939. That rifle had fed the family for 5 years before the war. It had never failed, never jammed, never misfired. It was simply reliable, accurate, and deadly in the hands of someone who understood it. Now that same rifle was killing German officers in a forest 6,000 miles from home, and it was performing exactly as it always had. Perfectly. November 3rd brought the convergence that Mitchell had been seeking. At 05:15 hours, as frost turned the forest silver and dawn began to gray the eastern sky, Mitchell watched 7 German officers gather at a crossroads 600 yards from his position. Through his scope, he could see their rank insignia clearly. At least 2 majors, possibly a lieutenant colonel. This was a command conference. This was exactly what Colonel Rudder had described, a high-value target that could disrupt German operations for days. Mitchell had 9 rounds remaining, 9 rounds for 7 targets, acceptable odds if he did not miss. The mathematics were challenging. 600 yards was near the maximum effective range of his rifle. At that distance, the bullet would drop approximately 60 inches below his point of aim. The cold morning air would reduce drop by perhaps 2 inches. The light crosswind would drift the bullet 4 to 6 inches. He would need to aim approximately 5 feet above his target and 6 inches to the left. And he would need to do this quickly because after the first shot, the officers would scatter. Mitchell selected his primary target, the tallest officer, the one the others deferred to, almost certainly the highest-ranking man present. 600 yards away, Corporal James Mitchell took a deep breath, let half of it out, and began to squeeze the trigger. The Winchester Model 70 roared in the pre-dawn silence. Before you continue watching, I need you to do something. If you are finding these incredible true stories of World War II valuable, hit that subscribe button right now. We work incredibly hard to research and produce these detailed historical accounts, and your subscription helps us continue bringing you content that most history channels simply will not cover. Click subscribe, turn on notifications, and let us continue with this remarkable story. Through his scope, Mitchell saw the tall officer collapse. The other officers froze for perhaps 2 seconds. 2 seconds was an eternity for a trained marksman. Mitchell worked the bolt, chambering a fresh round, selected his second target, fired. Another officer dropped. Bolt, chamber, aim, fire. A third man fell. Now the Germans understood they were under fire. Officers scattered, running for cover behind vehicles, diving into ditches, sprinting toward the tree line. 4th shot. The officer running toward the trees went down. 5th shot. A man trying to take cover behind the Kubelwagen jerked and fell. 6th shot. Another runner collapsed mid-stride. 7 shots. 6 officers down. One man had made it to cover behind a concrete bunker. Mitchell reloaded his rifle. He had 3 rounds left after this. The surviving officer made his move, sprinting from the bunker toward a covered trench line. Mitchell led him by 3 feet, accounting for his speed and the wind. Fired. The officer stumbled and fell. 7 targets, 7 shots, 7 confirmed or probable kills, all in less than 90 seconds, all from a distance that most military doctrine considered beyond effective rifle range, all with a civilian hunting rifle that everyone had mocked. Mitchell did not wait to admire his work. He knew what would happen next. German soldiers had heard the shots. Within minutes, they would saturate the area with machine gun fire and call in artillery. He needed to move immediately. He displaced 500 yards through the forest. Behind him, he heard the distinctive rip of German MG-42 machine guns opening up, firing blindly into the area where he had been positioned. Mortar rounds began to fall, but Mitchell was already gone, melting into the forest like smoke, leaving behind 7 dead officers and a German defensive sector that had just lost its command structure. The next 18 hours proved to be the longest of Mitchell's life. The German response was immediate and overwhelming. Infantry units began sweeping the forest. Patrols moved through every draw and hollow. Machine gun teams set up interlocking fields of fire. Mitchell had kicked a hornet's nest, and now he needed to survive long enough to escape. On the afternoon of November 3rd, he encountered his 8th target, a German officer moving between positions with an armed escort of 4 soldiers. The range was 350 yards, normally an easy shot. But Mitchell was exhausted, dehydrated, and operating on almost no sleep. He forced himself to go through the fundamentals his father had taught him. Breathe, relax, find a stable position, control the shot. He fired. The officer went down. But this time, Mitchell's position was immediately compromised. The escort soldiers saw the muzzle flash and opened fire. Bullets cracked through the air around Mitchell's position. He grabbed his rifle and ran. German bullets followed him through the forest. Rounds snapped past his head. A round struck a tree beside him, showering him with bark fragments. Another round punched through the sleeve of his jacket without touching skin. He ran for 200 yards before diving into a ravine. Behind him, the firing stopped. The Germans had lost visual contact, but he could hear them calling to each other, organizing a pursuit. As darkness fell on November 3rd, Mitchell finally put enough distance between himself and his pursuers to stop and assess. He was approximately 8 miles behind German lines. He was exhausted and nearly out of water. He had 2 rounds of ammunition remaining, and he had killed 8 German officers in less than 48 hours. He waited until full darkness, then began moving toward American lines. He navigated by compass, avoiding roads and trails, moving through the deepest forest where German patrols were less likely to venture. At 0230 hours on November 4th, Mitchell encountered his 9th and final target, a German observation post occupied by 2 soldiers and an officer, using a field telephone to coordinate artillery fire. Mitchell could hear the officer speaking German, calling in coordinates for a barrage on American positions. He had a choice: bypass the observation post and continue toward friendly lines, or eliminate the officer and save American lives at the risk of his own. Mitchell had never been very good at leaving a job unfinished. He crept to within 100 yards, close enough to make a shot that he could not afford to miss. He had 1 round left. After this, the rifle would be empty. Mitchell lined up the shot, 100 yards. He would need to aim low, perhaps 6 inches below center mass. He fired his final round. Through the darkness, he saw the German officer jerk and fall. The 2 soldiers jumped up, looking around wildly. Mitchell was already running, his empty rifle slung across his back, moving as fast as his exhausted legs could carry him toward American lines. Behind him he heard shouts in German, heard machine gun fire stitching the forest, but it was blind fire. Mitchell ran until he crashed through the last belt of forest and nearly stumbled into an American machine gun position. "Friendly," he gasped. 28th Infantry, Corporal Mitchell returning from patrol. The machine gunners had nearly shot him, but Mitchell's North Carolina accent and his American uniform saved his life. They lowered their weapons and pulled him into their position. "You look like hell," one of the gunners said. "Where you been?" "Hunting," Mitchell replied. Then he collapsed. The after-action report filed by Lieutenant Colonel Rudder on November 5th was unusually detailed. Corporal James R. Mitchell successfully completed a 72-hour reconnaissance and elimination mission behind enemy lines. Confirmed kills. 9 enemy officers, including at least 3 field-grade officers. Method: precision rifle fire at extended ranges using personally owned Winchester Model 70 rifle. Impact: German defensive coordination in assigned sector disrupted for approximately 48 hours. American casualties in sector decreased by estimated 35%. Forward artillery observer eliminated, resulting in cessation of accurate German artillery fire on American positions. Recommendation: Corporal Mitchell is recommended for appropriate valor decoration. The story of the corporal with the Sears catalog rifle, who had killed 9 German officers in 3 days, spread through the American forces in Europe like wildfire. Sergeant Harrigan, who had mocked Mitchell's rifle so mercilessly, was one of the first to shake his hand when he returned. "I owe you an apology," Harrigan said. "I thought you were crazy bringing that deer rifle to war. Turns out you were the sanest man in the company." The German reaction revealed itself through captured documents. The Wehrmacht unit that had lost 9 officers in 3 days filed multiple reports describing an American super soldier equipped with advanced optics and probably a specialized rifle capable of impossible accuracy. One German after-action report stated, "American sniper operating in our rear areas demonstrates capabilities exceeding known U.S. military standards. Suspect elite commando unit equipped with specialized weapons and training." The Germans never discovered that their super soldier with his specialized weapon was a 22-year-old coal miner's son from North Carolina with a hunting rifle purchased from a mail-order catalog. The technical superiority of Mitchell's rifle became a subject of intense interest among military planners. The Winchester Model 70 that everyone had dismissed was actually a remarkable piece of engineering. Its controlled round feed action was more reliable than the Springfield action. Its three-position safety was more secure. Its trigger was adjustable to breaking points that military triggers could never achieve. Most significantly, the Model 70 was available in longer barrel lengths. Mitchell's rifle had a 24-inch barrel compared to the 22-inch barrel of the military Springfield. Those extra 2 inches provided increased velocity, flatter trajectory, and better accuracy at extended ranges. The civilian hunting scope mounted on Mitchell's rifle was also superior to military optics of the period. The Lyman All-American 4-Power Scope provided clear glass and precise adjustments. It had cost $8.50 from the Sears catalog. Military Unertl scopes issued to Marine snipers cost over $100 and were not significantly better. In a bizarre twist, the rifle everyone had mocked turned out to be superior in several ways to the specialized sniper rifles the military had spent millions developing. If you are still watching, you are clearly passionate about these detailed historical stories. But here is the thing. Only about 15% of people who watch our videos are actually subscribed to the channel. If you have watched this far, you are the exact audience we create this content for. So please take 2 seconds right now and hit that subscribe button. Help us reach more history enthusiasts who appreciate the depth and detail we put into every video. Subscribe now and let us get back to the conclusion of Mitchell's remarkable story. Mitchell's decoration ceremony took place on November the 20th, 1944. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the nation's second highest valor decoration. The citation read, in part, for extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations against an armed enemy. Corporal Mitchell voluntarily penetrated deep into enemy-held territory and, through exceptional skill and courage, eliminated 9 enemy officers, disrupting German defensive operations. His actions reflect the highest traditions of military service. But perhaps more significant than the medal was what happened after the ceremony. Colonel Rudder pulled Mitchell aside and asked him a question that would change the trajectory of sniper development in the American military. Corporal, if you were designing a sniper program from scratch, what would you do differently? Mitchell's answer was immediate. Sir, I would stop trying to make snipers out of soldiers. I would find men who are already expert marksmen and teach them to be soldiers. Give me 100 deer hunters from the mountains, and I will kill more Germans than 1,000 soldiers with specialized training. This philosophy, radical for its time, would eventually influence American sniper doctrine in ways Mitchell never anticipated. The recognition that marksmanship was a specialized skill that required years to develop, not months of military training, would lead to the creation of sniper schools that recruited specifically for pre-existing shooting skills. In the weeks following Mitchell's return, the 28th Infantry Division established its first formal sniper section. The unit recruited specifically for soldiers with pre-military hunting experience. They were encouraged to use their personal rifles if those weapons were superior to issue equipment. By December 1944, the 28th Infantry Division had 8 dedicated sniper teams operating in the Hurtgen Forest. By January 1945, every American division in Europe had at least one sniper section. The program that Mitchell had pioneered, with his Sears catalog rifle, had become standard operating procedure. The Winchester Model 70, that had killed 9 German officers in 3 days, became something of a legend. Soldiers who had mocked it now asked to see it. Officers who had questioned its utility now studied its design. The rifle itself survived the war intact. Mitchell carried it through the rest of the Hurtgen Forest campaign, through the Battle of the Bulge, where he killed another 4 German soldiers at extended ranges, and finally into Germany proper, where the war ended in May 1945. He brought the rifle home to North Carolina in August 1945. It hangs today in a small museum in Waynesville, North Carolina, displayed with Mitchell's medals and a simple plaque describing its wartime service. The museum label reads, Winchester Model 70 Rifle, 30-06 caliber. Purchased from Sears Roebuck, catalog 1939 for $42.95. Used by Corporal James R. Mitchell to kill 13 confirmed German soldiers during World War II, including 9 officers in 3 days behind enemy lines, November 1944. Mitchell himself rarely spoke about his wartime experiences. He returned to the mountains of North Carolina, worked in a furniture factory, raised a family, and lived quietly until his death in 1998 at the age of 76. He never considered himself a hero. When pressed by local reporters about his Distinguished Service Cross, he would simply say, "I did what needed to be done, the rifle did the rest." But his legacy extended far beyond his own 13 confirmed kills. The program he pioneered influenced American military sniper doctrine for the next 70 years. The recognition that specialized skills could come from civilian backgrounds rather than military training became a cornerstone of modern special operations recruiting. Today, the United States Marine Corps Scout Sniper Program, the Army Sniper School, and other specialized marksmanship courses all emphasize the same principle Mitchell demonstrated in November 1944. Equipment matters less than skill. A competent marksman with a basic rifle will outperform an average soldier with the most advanced weapon. The Marine Corps even adopted Mitchell's philosophy, recruiting specifically from populations with hunting backgrounds. They recognized what Mitchell had proven in the Hurtgen Forest. A man who had spent years shooting deer in the mountains could transition to combat marksmanship far more easily than a soldier with no shooting background. The technical evolution of sniper rifles also reflected Mitchell's legacy. The Marine Corps M40 sniper rifle, introduced in 1966, was based on the Remington 700, a civilian hunting rifle. The Army's M24, introduced in 1988, was similarly derived from civilian designs. These military sniper rifles owed a debt to the Winchester Model 70. They proved that Mitchell had been right all along. The best sniper rifle was not necessarily a purpose-built military weapon. It was a reliable, accurate civilian design in the hands of a shooter who understood it intimately. The story of Mitchell and his Sears catalog rifle revealed something about American military culture that German planners consistently underestimated. The American military was willing to accept individual initiative and unconventional solutions. When Mitchell appeared with a civilian rifle, his officers were skeptical, but willing to let him prove himself. When he demonstrated capability, they gave him a mission that played to his strengths. German military culture, rigid and hierarchical, would never have allowed such flexibility. A German soldier who appeared with a personal weapon would have been ordered to turn it in immediately. The Wehrmacht's strength was its discipline, but that same rigidity prevented it from adapting to unconventional threats. Mitchell's mission succeeded partly because it was so unexpected. No German officer imagined that a single American soldier with a hunting rifle could penetrate their rear areas and kill 9 officers in 3 days. This failure of imagination cost them dearly. The mockery Mitchell endured before his mission reflected a military culture that valued standardization over individualization. The M1 Garand was a fine rifle, possibly the best infantry rifle of World War II. But it was not the best rifle for every mission. Mitchell's Winchester was better suited for long-range precision shooting, but military culture initially could not accept that a civilian hunting rifle might outperform issue equipment. This tension between standardization and specialization continues in modern military forces. Mitchell's success helped the military understand that sometimes the best solution is not the standard solution. The economic aspect is also remarkable. His rifle cost $42.95. The scope cost $8.50. Total investment, $51.45. This $51 package killed 9 enemy officers and disrupted German operations for days, By comparison, training a single American soldier cost approximately $15,000 in 1944 money. Equipping that soldier cost another $500. Mitchell's total equipment investment was 1/3 of 1% of what the military spent on a standard infantryman. Yet his impact exceeded that of entire companies. The story ends where it began, with a man and a rifle that everyone mocked. The coal miner's son from North Carolina with his Sears catalog deer gun. The civilian hunter in a war fought by military professionals. The quiet Appalachian marksman who killed 9 German officers in 3 days and changed American sniper doctrine forever. They mocked his rifle. They questioned his competence. They doubted his ability. And then he dropped 9 German officers in 72 hours with a weapon that cost less than a week's wages. Proved that skill mattered more than equipment. Demonstrated that the best weapon is the one the shooter knows best. And changed the way the American military thought about snipers and marksmanship. The Winchester Model 70 from the Sears catalog did not win World War II. But in the hands of James Mitchell, it won 9 engagements that mattered. That was enough. His rifle hangs in a small museum in North Carolina today. $42.95 of mail order, steel and wood that killed 13 German soldiers and influenced 70 years of American military doctrine. Still mocked by no one, still respected by everyone who knows its story. In the end, that is the lesson of Corporal James Robert Mitchell and his Sears catalog rifle. Do not mock the weapon. Do not dismiss the unconventional. Do not underestimate the quiet man with the deer rifle, because sometimes that quiet man with his $42 rifle can do what entire battalions with millions of dollars in equipment cannot. He can win the war 1 shot at a time, 9 officers in 3 days, 13 Germans in total, 1 rifle, 1 shooter. One lesson the German military learned too late. Never mock the man with the hunting rifle. He just might be the most dangerous soldier on the battlefield.